From the ashes of divorce, you can come back stronger than ever. This is Divorce to Victory with Kevin Ray Ward. Your new life starts now. Hey there, it's Kevin Ray Ward, and today's topic is how to know when your marriage is over. Not an easy question, not an easy conversation to have, but in this conversation, we're going to dive deep into what ends a marriage and how to know when it is time to let the marriage go and move on. Now, I want to just start with several things underlying this, and I'm going to get down to 7 specific signs that your relationship is over. There's going to be some overlap in them and a little bit of crossover, but in general, the purpose of this video is to help you get real clarity and certainty in where you are in your marriage, in your relationship, and whether it's worth fighting for or whether it's not worth fighting for. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So here's what I believe. I believe marriage is worth fighting for. I hate divorce. When I do this work as what I call the divorce prophet, it's not because I'm a fan of divorce. I hate it, but it's also a reality that happens. I'm not a fan of funerals, but funerals happen because people die. Divorce happens because marriages die. And so the question is, when do you call it quits? When do you accept it? If she wants to call it quits and she's filed or she's moved out or she's separated or she's telling you she wants a divorce, or if it's you that's initiating it or encouraging it, where are you at in the process and how do you know what to do? Here's what you got to understand about a divorce. Whether you stay in a marriage or you fight for the marriage, if you call it quits and you decide to go forward with the divorce, or if you decide to save it, either way, it's going to be more painful and more costly than you could imagine. Either way, if you decide to end it and say, that's it, I'm done, file, move out, move on, it's going to be painful, it's going to be devastating, it's going to be costly, more than you probably are aware. If you decide to fight for it, say, I'm going to save my marriage, and to truly save it, to truly actually take a marriage that is on its deathbed, that is on life support, and actually resurrect it or bring it back to life and actually make it a fulfilling, joyful relationship, is going to be more painful and more costly than you probably can imagine. The question is, when is it time to let it go? Here's when it's time to let it go. If the marriage is dead, it's over. The relationship is gone. If the horse is dead, best advice, dismount. Time to get off. Time to get off the horse. You don't stay in a dead relationship out of fear of others' opinions, out of fear of judgment or criticism from others, and other big mistake that people make is we stay in the marriage because we're afraid of the consequences of divorce. Spiritually, personally, emotionally, financially, relationally, and so we stay there. But the reality is that the long-term consequences of staying in a dead marriage is much more costly and much worse for you. It is much worse for everybody in your world, including your children, okay? And it's worse for your spouse than the consequences of being completely honest, owning what's happened, and making a clean break. Okay, when I was going through my first divorce, I met with a Christian counselor, he was actually a Christian psychologist, and he said, here's my perspective. I want either for you to have a good marriage or to have a good divorce. But staying in a bad marriage is not God's will, and it's not good for anybody. Doesn't mean God wants divorce, he just wants good marriages. And when the marriage is not only not good, but it is dead, what you have is no longer a marriage. What you have is two people who are staying together, living a lie, trying to pretend like they're actually a couple when in reality, they're just housemates. So if you are in that place of, I don't know what to do, then I'm going to give you a couple of things to be real clear. So number one, if you know in your heart right now, as you're watching this video and going like, is it time to call it quits? Is my marriage over? If you know in your heart that you want to make this marriage work, okay, you know, I don't want it to be over. I'm all in to save my marriage and do whatever it takes. Then here's my advice to you. Go get to work on it. Stop right now, listen to this podcast. Go get with your wife, your spouse, and get a therapist, get in marriage counseling, and start doing the work to make it great. If you're all in and committed to making that happen, go do everything in your power to make it happen. Now, if you do that and all of a sudden you run into a brick wall of she's like, nope, it's over, I'm done, I'm not willing to work at it, then you can come back to this conversation. But do not sit here going back and forth when in your heart you know you want to save it. This is when this conversation is, if you're sitting here watching this video and you're going like, I need to know the truth. Is my marriage over? Is it worth fighting for? If it's not, I'll fight for it if I can save it. But if it's not, I will accept reality. And this is a big piece of it, is just learning how to rapidly and radically accept reality, because the sooner you come to terms with it, what the reality is, the faster you can move on and do what needs to happen with your life. Okay, so the rest of this podcast is going to be for those of you who believe deep in your heart that your marriage is probably over and all you're looking for is just a level of certainty and clarity so you kind of know what to do next. Okay, so there are basically three ways marriages end. Number one, she initiates it. Number two, you initiate it. Number three, you both mutually come to an agreement on this, which is very rare. Typically, it's one or the other that initiates it. In marriages where the people are over 40 years of age, in America, about 3/4 of the marriages or of the divorces are initiated and filed by the woman. So she initiates 3 out of 4 times, 75% of the time. She's the one that is initiating it. So if you're watching this and you're a man, very likely that's the situation you are in. Now, if you're one of the 25% and you're the one initiating it or deciding whether or not to initiate it and wanting to know if your marriage is over, then you are in the right place. But here's what I want to tell you. Whether she initiated or you initiated or wherever you are in this process of thinking about it or doing it or whatever, you, from this day forward, from this moment on, as you watch from this podcast forward, you must take control. You got to take control of your life. You take control of your future. Stop giving it over to her and waiting for her to come around and getting suckered in by hope, or waiting for her to take action and saying, well, I want her to initiate so that it's, that I can claim innocence and it's her fault. No, take control of your future. Take control of your life. Because how long are you going to wait? How long are you going to wait and let somebody else control your life who is not looking out for your best interest? When it's now, they're going to make the decision based on what they want to do. And it's not going to be for your benefit. It's going to be for theirs. So you got to take control of your life right now and do what you need to do to make your life work. And that includes taking control of your marriage or of the process of ending the marriage if the marriage is dead. Okay? So just sitting there and hoping that it's going to get better and hoping maybe she'll initiate, all it's going to do is prolong the suffering, and it just delays the inevitable, and you're just wasting your life. Whether it's another month, another 6 months, another year, another 2 years. I've got a guy that I work with right now that's gone through a divorce that he said, I've known for 4 years that our marriage was over. But every time we talked about it, I was waiting for her to take action. I just didn't, and she didn't want to do it because it was going to hurt her, position at work, and it hurt her reputation and all this kind of stuff. And so he stayed stuck in a dead marriage for 4 years, knowing that the marriage was over. And one of his biggest things right now, he kicks himself all the time saying, if only I had taken action and been willing to make the decision sooner. So my friend, when it ain't good, make it good or get out. Okay, so here's some red flags. How do I know when my marriage is over? Here's some red flags that things are potentially dying in the relationship if it's not already dead. And I want to just tell you, this is one of the realities. Love is not enough to make a marriage work. Okay, I love the song, all you need is love, but love is not enough. Okay, you can love somebody and not be able to stay in that marriage. Okay, love is not enough. So here are some red flags when a marriage is either dying or dead. Number one, there's no trust. One or both of you doesn't trust the other one. Just flat out, don't trust you. Don't trust her. Can't trust her. Okay? Why? She's lied, she's cheated, whatever it is. Or maybe you've been the culprit. But when there's absolutely no trust, it is the very foundational bedrock of a relationship. Number two is no communication. If you're not able and willing to communicate, and I'm not just talking about what do you want for dinner, what time are you going to be home. I'm not talking about factual communication. I'm talking about actually engage in a relationship with affection and talk and have communication about what you want, what's not working, what needs to be done, where differences, things that need to be resolved, problems that need to be resolved, conflicts that need to be reconciled, to be able to have even collision when things aren't going right between you. If you have no communication and your house is most of the time in silence, other than the things the bare minimum necessary communications, your marriage is on the rocks, if not dead already. Third red flag, no sex. How long has it been since you had sex? How long has it been since you had passionate sex? How long has it been since you had regular sex? Great healthy sex life in a relationship and where there's real true intimacy, true connection, true affection. It is an indication of the health of a marriage. And when it goes away, it's an indication that the health and well-being of the marriage is going away. Next, very much connected with it, but not completely the same, but connected is no affection. If there's no affection between you and there's just like, you don't like each other, she doesn't like you, she doesn't want to be touched, she doesn't want, not even sexually, just like she doesn't want to hold hands, sit next to you, be close to you. There's no affection. That ain't a marriage. And then the fifth red flag is no respect. That's just a red flag whenever there is a lack of respect in the couple. And typically it's the wife no longer respects the man. If your wife just clearly disdains you, she does not respect you, she does not appreciate you, she does not admire you, my friend, your marriage is dead or dying. Can you change it? Maybe. But you got to know that this is a problem. Okay. Now there's a million things that can cause all this to happen, but however it happened, you are here. And when there's no respect and she treats you she talks to you like you're a kid and she talks to you, she's snappy and short and harsh and rude and just kind of always nagging. She doesn't respect you, okay? Now, it's not my fault. Well, it probably is your fault, number one. And number two, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. This is a sign of a dead marriage, okay? Another sign of a dead or dying marriage, a big red flag, is when you are suppressing all your emotions and you're trying to just like go along to get along and keep the peace and be the nice guy, but it ain't well and you're not happy and it's not the way you want it. My friend, marriage is dead or it is dying. Now, here's what I want to tell you. People say, we talk about this idea of irreconcilable differences, which in a lot of states has been like a grounds for divorce. Now, most states now are no-fault divorces. You don't have to give a reason. There doesn't have to be a justification for it. It's like, we're getting a divorce. Okay, here, what are the terms? Let's figure that out. But used to, there would be like, you had to have grounds for divorce. And typically it was like infidelity, committing adultery, that kind of stuff. And now it's like, well, we just have irreconcilable differences. And for years, that was taught. And for me as a preacher years ago, that was kind of like considered a cop-out. Every difference is reconcilable between a couple. You can work it out. Well, the reality is there is such a thing as irreconcilable differences. Some things are just irreconcilable because you're not willing to move on it or she's not willing to move on it. So guess what? If one of you or both of you are not willing to move on it and come together and reconcile on it, compromise on it, figure it out, work it out, it's irreconcilable. It's not going to work. So how do you know when it's over? So here are 7 clear indications and signs, more than just red flags, but these are how you know that your marriage is dead or it is over. Okay, number one, these are not in any particular order. Some are worse than others. Okay, number one is abuse. Whenever there is ongoing abuse, whether it's emotional, sexual, verbal, or physical abuse, whatever kind of abuse it is, if it is an abusive relationship, the marriage is over. It doesn't mean you're not going to stay together for a while because a lot of people stay into very dysfunctional and abusive relationships. But if that's not resolved, it's going to end badly. So number one, marriage is over when there is ongoing abuse. Number 2, indicator that the marriage is over is infidelity. Now, does that mean if somebody cheats one time that the marriage is over? Not necessarily, but when there is ongoing infidelity. Now, this may be adultery, it may be actually cheating, or it may be just lying and dishonesty. When there's ongoing dishonesty or lying in a relationship, and it's typically one person is doing the lying and really is the one that is there. But I also want to say it's never just one person's fault. Like I got cheated on. Well, okay. But cheating or infidelity is not caused by just one person being out of control. It's because something happened in the marriage that made them feel incomplete and unfulfilled in the relationship that caused them to look outside of the marriage to find fulfillment. And that's what leads to cheating. So there's never like the guilty party and the innocent party. That was always the thing when I was young, when I was a preacher in the church, was like, who's the guilty party? Who's the innocent party? Because the guilty party could never get remarried again without committing perpetual adultery and going to hell. Now, again, I don't believe that's actually what Scripture teaches. It is a convoluted and complex question. But in this conversation, just clear that there's never just one party at fault. But when it's happening and it's ongoing infidelity and there's ongoing lying or dishonesty, that relationship is over, my friend. It's dead. It is time to look at letting it go, because when that is happening, it tells you there's no respect for the other person. There is no care for the best interests of the other person. And everything that makes a marriage and made your vows true is gone. So stop settling for being lied to or cheated on. Just stop settling for it. Well, I'm trying to make it out. I'm trying to work it out for the kids. I'm trying to get them to come around. I'm trying to understand them. I'm trying to all this. No, my friend, you don't need to understand it. It ain't working. Okay? Not working. Accept it. Let it go. Number 3, total indifference. When there is just on one or both parties, just total indifference in the other person. I don't give a shit anymore. I don't care about you. I don't care about any of it. When one or both of you does not have the will or the willingness to work on the relationship, to fix it, to heal it, to reconcile it, the marriage is dead. Now, you can stay together and you can be miserable, okay? But whenever one person won't acknowledge that there's a problem and they're like, nah, it's fine, we're good. Well, I think we should go to couples counseling. If you think you need counseling, you need therapy, go to therapy. I'm not going. What they're telling you is, I'm not willing to work on this marriage. I am indifferent to this relationship. I'm indifferent to you and indifferent to your feelings and your needs. That relationship is over. The marriage is deceased. Okay, connected with that, number 4 is hopelessness. And that is when you've gotten to a point where you feel like you've tried everything, you've done your best, and nothing is changing. And you look at this relationship and go like, there's no hope. I mean, she's not going to change. Nothing's going to happen. I've tried and nothing is going to happen. Now you're going to get this thing that's going to come. I was like, should I try harder? When do I know I've tried enough? And all this kind of stuff. And you'll have a lot of times you'll have other people in your world, people from church, people that are friends, family, your in-laws, her side of the family, that will sometimes challenge you. Well, you didn't try hard enough. You should have tried harder and all this kind of stuff. When you feel like you have given it your best, you've given it your all, and you start losing your will to fight for it. It's like, I've done everything. There comes a point of hopelessness where it's just like, I'm done. I don't have the will to work on it anymore because she's not showing any indication of willingness to work on it. Now, I also want to say this. If you're watching this video, for the most part, I'm talking to men. This is very relevant also if you're a woman watching this. But when I'm saying she's the one that's doing this, I'm not saying women are always the one at fault here. All I'm saying is my audience is typically men, so this is who I work with, this is who I address. So if you're a woman watching this, welcome, I'm glad you're here. And if you have questions or comments, whether you're a man or a woman going through this situation, please put the comments and questions in the chat here if you're watching this on YouTube, and I will be happy to answer questions. And it also helps me know what content you need and what content I can create for future videos. All right, so number 5. The 5th indicator that the marriage is over is separation. When one of the parties just leaves, okay, when they move out, when they just go, whether they are like, I'm out of here, and they completely load up the U-Haul and move out, or if they just pack up their suitcase and exit, or if we say we're going to try it for a while, we're going to separate. When a couple separates, it's over. 90% of the time, that marriage is over. And again, is it possible to reconcile? Yes, it is possible, but it is unlikely. And again, going back with all the red flags that we've talked about and all the other scenario is the different situations and factors that are engaged in all of this, is when that happens, that moment of separation, they're telling you, I don't want to be in this marriage. And it's like, I'm exiting. And once they get a feel and a taste of what it's like to not have the tension of walk into the same bedroom or being in the same house, and there's just when the tension is thick enough, you can cut it with a knife, as they say. Once their separation has happened, most of the time that marriage is over. I'm not excited about telling you that. It's just the truth. Number 6, the 6th indicator that the marriage is over is what I call terminal misery. Terminal misery. This kind of goes along with hopelessness, so it could be the same thing, but here's the question to ask yourself. If nothing changes in this relationship, meaning she's indicated or your spouse has indicated they're not interested and willing on working on this relationship, they're not going to change, they're not going to do anything with it, and you look at this, ask yourself this question: if nothing changes, will I be happy? If nothing changes, will I be happy? Like, how long am I going to sit here? Well, can you imagine yourself sitting here 2 Christmases from now in the living room around the Christmas tree with your kids or grandkids and grandkids or family or whoever it is, or if it's just the two of you? How many years are you going to be willing to sit and be miserable in the same room with that person and endure this terminal misery that's never going to go away? Okay? If the answer is, will you be happy if nothing changes? If the answer to that is no, the marriage is dead. It's over. Again, this doesn't mean you can't stay together. It just means the marriage is dead. And if you want to have a great life and you want happiness and you want fulfillment and you want a fulfilling relationship, it's not going to happen in this marriage. This marriage is over. Let her go. End it. And again, I say this all the time. Divorce is not what ends a marriage. Divorce is not what kills a marriage. Marriages don't die because of divorce. Divorce is the funeral. The marriage was already dead. You didn't kill it by getting a divorce. When you file for a divorce, that doesn't kill the marriage. It's acknowledging that the marriage is already gone. It's dead. The relationship is over. All we're doing is acknowledging it. So this idea of, well, I don't want to get a divorce because then God's going to judge me. God's already been judging you, my friend. You've been in a fucked up relationship and you haven't been doing the things and she hasn't been doing the things. Both of you have not been doing the things that you committed to do in your vows, or this would not be happening. It can be primarily one person's fault, but there's always responsibility to go around. So when you're in that situation and it's time to end it, acknowledge it's dead. It's time to end it. Number 7, the 7th sign that the marriage is over is what I call self-preservation. And self-preservation is when the only way for you to be true to yourself as a man or as a woman, the only way for you to be true to yourself, whoever's watching this, is to exit the relationship. Because if you don't, you're losing all respect for yourself and you're just going to self-destruct. Whether you can do it by sedation, by hiding in alcohol, booze, drugs, porn, other addictions, other behaviors, just to hide out in the marriage that is dead. And it's like the corpse of the dead marriage is sitting there in the living room and we're just going to live around it. And you know, as you look at that, the only way for me to be true to myself and live into my potential and to God's purpose for my life is to exit from this marriage. My friend, choose yourself. Choose you. Choose your future. Choose your life. Okay? Again, you're not killing the marriage. And this is one thing that you have to come to terms with. Divorce is not the way you kill a marriage. The relationship and the dynamics of the relationship that made it a dead relationship, that's what killed the marriage. Whatever it was, it may have been indifference, it may have been lack of communication, it may have been two of you going 2 different directions, it may have been conflicts, it may have been values differences, it may have been somebody cheating, it may have been an addiction, it may have been abuse, it may have been any number of things that could cause the marriage to die. It's already dead. All we're doing is trying to see if there's a pulse in this relationship and that can be resuscitated and this marriage brought back to health. Again, if you're still watching this video and you're still believing that that's the case, get off this video, go get to work. But when you know it's like, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do no matter how hard I try, this relationship is over. Then my friend, it's a hard pill to swallow. But I'm telling you, the moment that you get clear, the moment you make a decision that this marriage is over and it's time for me to move on, I'm going to tell you right now, there will come a feeling of liberation and of freedom and power and clarity that will instantly give your life renewed hope, give your life energy. I was not planning to do this, but I think I am going to read my journal from my personal journal the day that I made the decision that my marriage was over. The day I made the decision that I was going to move out and file for a divorce. It was not what I wanted, but this was the question that I was facing myself 2 years ago. And that was, is this marriage over? And I spent 6 months doing everything I could to save the marriage. I spent 6 months once everything blew up and she left and it was like, what can I do? What can I do? And I journaled over 1,000 pages in my journaling of trying to figure out and talking to God and saying, God, what do I do? How do I fix this? How do I fix this? And after 6 months and after some major collisions and just some real come to Jesus meetings, those moments is like, this is what's got to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I'm out. And we had those conversations. And here was my conversation with God in my journal on January 29th, 2023. And I'm going to read this to you. I'll probably change I'm not going to use any names and stuff like that in there, but I'm going to share it with you for a very simple reason. I hope in me sharing it with you, it will give you some insight into how I went through this and will help you get some clarity on how you're going through yours. So this is my journal entry. I titled the journal entry, Am I Really Going to Do This? January 29th, 2023. Am I really going to do this? I've allowed us to get stuck again, waiting to see if she is going to come around to make our marriage work. I have two options. Number one, I'm going to keep waiting and hoping that she will come around and our marriage will work. Or number two, I'm going to move on, move out, and file for divorce. Both with the desire to have a great marriage with her, but with the commitment to have an amazing marriage with a powerful queen somehow, regardless. I have to decide which option to take now. I feel frustrated, I'm torn, I'm sad, I'm angry. I feel love, I feel stress, I feel tension, and I feel clarity all at once. Fuck, I know the answer. I have to leave and move on. I got suckered in again by hope. I love my wife. I care about my wife. I want her happiness, and I'm still wanting to think that if I stick it out, she will get over it and come around. She's not going to come around. She still wants to go back to the old way we were before. That will never happen. I will not fucking go back to a mediocre marriage, or even worse, the bullshit that I've been settling for the last 6 months. I have to go forward. I hate this, Father, and I'm praying now. I don't want to leave. I don't want to give up. I don't want another divorce. But even more, I don't want to be stuck in another dysfunctional relationship. I know what I have to do. This indecision and waffling shit has me in emotional limbo and turmoil every day. She says it won't work, and then she acts like she wants to try. Fuck try. I have to get my shit together and move forward. And I know the only chance that we have is for me to be true to my word. And then when she sees that and knows 100% that I am a man of my word, she can make her choices. Either way, disruption is coming. Either way, temporary chaos is the path to freedom. Either way, I am the fucking king. I will wait no longer. So now I have to plan the next steps. This is all shit I have to start doing today. I just put days on everything, so I have a plan. I'll do everything I can today. No more procrastination. Now, what I did is then I wrote out a list of here were some things the planning that I had to do, of like moving out, giving her notice, finding an attorney, getting a divorce, all the stuff I had to do. And so I started making a list. I'll do everything I can today. No more procrastination. Starting today, I move with swiftness and certainty. I am clear and decisive and committed. This is the right path. I know that. It hurts. It sucks. But it is necessary. I choose to win and have a great life. I will not wait another day for someone else to determine my path. God, I need you now more than ever. I am here. I am listening for you to guide me. You've already shown me the path. Am I doing the right thing? Now, here's what I heard in this conversation, in my spirit, in my gut from God. God said, yes, this is your path. You have chosen your path, and I am with you. Your choices all have consequences. You are where you are today because of your choices. Keep listening to me, keep believing, and keep moving. No doubt, no indecision. Protect your heart. Be strong and courageous. You have painful moments ahead, but you will move through the pain, and I will strengthen you, and I will be with you. Amen. Thank you, God. Is there anything that I am missing, God? Not for this moment. You have what you need. Just be clear. I will guide you as you move forward. There will be adjustments and many decisions that you will face, but walk in faith and do not stop until I tell you to stop. Yes, Father, I honor you. I will do your will. My lesson for this is to walk by faith and not by sight, and to keep walking one step at a time. It's time to move forward with my life. I immediately feel free, even as I face a difficult and painful road. But I know it is the path, and I will not stop moving. Now, that was my journal entry that day. And I did this every day. I did this for months. It was not every day, was not about my marriage, but for a 6-month period, it was almost every day a conversation that I was having with God. And I journaled it just so that I could get clarity in my thoughts. And I want to recommend for you that this may be a thing for you to do, is have this idea of a prayerful journaling conversation with God. I'm just write out what you feel, write out your feelings, process everything, and then listen for what God is directing you to do. Okay, there's more than just this idea of being in Scripture and reading the Bible. There's also listening to God and knowing that He will guide you, that He will direct you, that He will give you insight. Now, it's also possible you can deceive yourself. Okay, it's also possible we can lie to ourselves. So you have to be aware. And you have to know, hey, listen, I'm not infallible. I can make mistakes. You can make mistakes. You just have to be there. But if you look at your marriage right now, and you may be sitting here debating on whether or not to file for divorce, maybe in a situation where you're separated, maybe in a situation where you've already filed the divorce or she's already filed and you're trying to decide what to do. Here's the question. If it's broken and unfixable, when am I going to decide to let it go? When am I going to decide to own my life and move on? My friend, if you're in that place, it's time to end it. Okay? And by the way, if you're like hopeful, like I was, even when I was writing this, I was like, my hope is that through this, that we can get our relationship back. That I would love it if I could, she would finally come around and go like, okay, you're right. And I'll let go. We had a big conflict. We had a big fight over business because we had a business together. And it literally exposed our marriage as like we were housemates and business partners, and the marriage was dead. And I was just praying. I was so hopeful that once I made this decision, that she would finally come around and say, you know what, you're right. And I knew, but I knew the only way that could happen is if I move forward. And I had to take control of my life, and I had to take control of the relationship and of the situation. And I had to make the decision, because where we were stuck. We were high-centered. We were a stalemate. She was not willing to come around to forgive, to get over it. And I do all of this without claiming innocence. Anytime a marriage fails, you got to take responsibility. Okay, was it all my fault? No, for sure it wasn't. And I did everything I could. And people ask that, they're like, are you sure you did everything you could? I've got over 1,200 pages of written journaling. You read that, and then you didn't tell me I did everything I could. So that when I made this decision, it was not like I sat down one day and had a conversation and wrote out some notes and said, okay, I'm done. I'd been doing this. I'd been just fighting this fight for weeks and months. Couples therapy, countless hours of conversations, letters, text messages, phone, all of it. Okay? But when the old is dead, the old must end so something new can begin. And whether it's a reconciliation down the road, once you have liberated yourself from the shackles of the broken relationship, the broken marriage, then you have the opportunity to heal and become whole. She has the opportunity to heal and become whole. And maybe someday you could come back together. Unlikely, yes. But it's possible. It's the only way. Because otherwise you're going to stay stuck in the same cycle. A build and burn, a build and burn, a build and burn. So here's the last question. How many more nights are you willing to lie in bed next to her, emotionally isolated and alone? How many more Christmases are you going to be willing to sit in the room with her, completely separated emotionally, spiritually, physically, in every way other than legally? If it's time to end it, my friend, bite the bullet, man up, stand up, make a decision, and end it. You deserve better than what you've been settling for. And you can have better than what you've been settling for. Is there loss? Yes. Is there going to be devastation? Yes. Is it a tragedy? Yes. But when it's over and it's dead, and it can't be healed, it's time to acknowledge it and move on. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. This has not been a fun video. This has not been an easy video for me to shoot. And I'm sure it's not one that's easy for you to watch it, because the very fact you're watching this says that your life is not in a great place. So I want you to know I'm here for you. I'm going to be posting every week new episodes other videos, other content. So make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching it, listening to it on podcast, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Comment in the comments here. If you're on YouTube watching this, feel free to post any comments or questions and I'll be happy to respond to those. And also it'll help me know what kind of future content to create for you. I wish the very best for you, but the most important thing is to know that you have to walk by faith and you have to be the one who makes the decisions, the tough decisions to take control of your life and move forward so that you can win.